Hey, everybody. So it is off season for most of you. This is the time when a lot of bodybuilders want to make their best gains, then kind of diet down for a cut in the summer. But right now, it's all about getting stronger, getting bigger. If you're a bodybuilder, you're in the gym to get bigger. You're in there to change your physique. So that's who I'm talking to in this video. Yet, a lot of us go to the gym day after day, week after week, month after month. We think we're training hard. We think we're doing everything right, but we look the same all the time. We're not getting any bigger. So I want to investigate the 7 reasons, the top reasons, main reasons why gains do not happen, why you're not growing. What are you doing wrong? Let's start with number 1. You're probably not eating enough. And a lot of times when I start talking to people, the first thing they'll say is, I eat plenty. But of course, I don't let them off that easy. I start asking, okay, let me know. Tell me what you ate today. Give me a training day. What'd you eat today? And when they run it down, I see they're not eating that much at all. A lot of times they're eating 2 or 3 meals a day, maybe a shake. A lot of times people skip breakfast. And, I'll really hold them to that. I'll say, why didn't you skip breakfast? They say, well, I got to get to work. I got to do this. I got to do that. So get up a little earlier. They say, well, I'm not that hungry in the morning. I said, well, start eating. Eventually, it's like anything else. You build on it. You build your appetite. You start with a little bit of breakfast, add a little bit more food to that, and eventually you can eat a big breakfast every day. You need to be eating a lot of food. So how do you know if you're eating enough? It's pretty easy. You get any of those nutrient calorie counting apps. There's a ton of them that are free you can download. See how much you're eating. If you're not gaining weight, look at that calorie content and you need to up it, because if you're not gaining weight, you need to eat more. If you're not losing weight, you need to either eat less or increase your activity level. It's a very, very simple equilibrium scale type of thing. Calories in versus calories out. If you are not gaining, you're probably not eating enough. How much should you be eating? Well, that's again, when you want to start keeping track of your nutrients, your intake, your calories, your protein, your carbs, your fats, gradually increase it until you get to a point where you are gaining body weight. And if you get to a point where you're gaining weight and you're getting a little fat, then you scale it back a little bit. And I'm talking about eating clean food. I'm not talking about eating a lot of junk food, fast food, candy, snacks, chips, crackers, stuff like that. You need to eat a lot of really good, wholesome, nutritious food. I'm talking about chicken, fish, steak, turkey, eggs, oatmeal, rice, potatoes, sweet potatoes, fruits, vegetables, all that good stuff. As many real food meals as you can per day. Granted, protein shakes, whey protein is a very high quality source to get your protein in. But if you're relying on shakes and you're not eating much real food, it's going to be very, very hard for you to make muscle gains. You need to be in a caloric surplus. And unless you're having one of these mass gainer shakes, which are typically loaded with a lot of sugar and things you don't want in there, it's going to be very hard to do that just drinking shakes. So a lot of real food every day. Keep track of your calories, increase them until you see you're at a point where you're gaining muscular body weight and you're not getting fatter. A little bit of fat gain is okay. That is acceptable. Little bit being the key word. If you're getting fat is a high chance, especially if you're eating a lot of garbage food, there's a high probability that most of what you're gaining is in fact just fat. We've all been there. We've all done that. So there's no shame in it. It's a lot easier to eat tons and tons of calories in the form of junk food, fast food, because they are so calorically dense. Eating fried chicken and donuts, it's easier for you to increase your caloric intake by 1,000 daily than it would be to get that same amount of calories, an extra 1,000 from chicken breast, rice, potatoes, things like that. All right, that's reason 1. Let's get to reason 2. You're not training hard enough. Now, immediately, the defense mode is going to kick in for a lot of people. I train very hard. Nobody trains harder than me, of course. I get it. Now, I'm not saying you have to train exactly like Ronnie Coleman in his video, The Unbelievable, or Dorian Yates in Blood and Guts. That's extremely hard, vicious training, way beyond the point of momentary muscular failure. What I do see a lot of now is with the rise of science-based lifting, which isn't a bad thing in and of itself, but because there have been a group of studies that have been publicized saying you don't need to train all the way to failure. You can stop with a couple reps in reserve, RIR, and you'll still make gains. Some people have taken that too far where they don't take anything to failure ever. They're afraid to. They think that's going to wreck their nervous system. They think it's unnecessary. You do need to train hard. You do need to challenge yourself and push yourself. If I say to you 8 to 12 reps, which is just a random arbitrary figure that sort of is a marker for time under tension for the muscle. If I say that, I want you to do a set of bench presses for 8 to 12 reps. And you take a weight and you get 12 reps, and that 12th rep is not much harder than the first rep. It's very lightweight for you. Of course, you want to warm up and everything, but you want a weight that pushes and challenges you. So it's very hard for you to get to the end, the high end of that rep range. So a lot of people, they'll do their 8 to 10 reps, or they'll do squats for 10 to 15 reps, but they're not really pushing themselves. It's not that challenging. The last few reps of every set should be pretty damn hard. It should be hard to get 12 reps if 8 to 12 reps is your goal. If it's not, you need a little bit more weight. So you're not training hard enough. This does apply to a lot of people. I know very few people would be able to admit that they don't train hard enough, because it's kind of like admitting you're not a tough guy, you're a pussy boy, whatever. But push yourself, challenge yourself. It shouldn't be easy. It should be tough. You should be really struggling and straining with good form. Reason 3, huge reason here. Reason you're not gaining. You're training for strength, not size. They're two very different things. Training for strength is all about explosiveness. It's all about moving the weight from point A to point B. It's not about feeling the muscle work. It's not about getting good contractions or stretches on the way down. It's purely about moving weight. If you want to train for that, that's fine. I have no problems with anybody having their own personal goals in training. Whatever reason that you're exercising, getting in the gym, that's a great reason if that's what gets you in there. However, there's a lot of people who are training for strength, assuming that size should follow. Now, if you're training in the muscle hypertrophy range, higher reps, keeping the muscle under tension for a longer time, and gradually increasing the weights you use, yes, you are going to get bigger. However, if you're always doing 1, 2, 3 reps, very, very low reps, and there are people who train this way, and they're dumbfounded. Why am I not growing? The muscle is not under tension long enough. So really what you're working is your nervous system, your connective tissues. The muscle itself is not getting that much stimulation. If you ever watch Olympic weightlifting, whether it's in the Olympics or YouTube Olympic weightlifting, you're going to see people lifting weights that they look like a human ant. There's no way it makes sense to see a 140, 150-pound guy pick up 300 pounds in a flash, press it over his head. It's insane. Why is he so small? He looks like he lifts and everything, but he's not huge like a bodybuilder. How many bodybuilders could do that? Even a guy twice that size, 280-pound guy. I don't think there's too many of them that could take a 300-pound, 315-pound bar off the ground, flip it up and press it. Very, very few could do that, even at that weight, because they're training for power. They're training for strength, explosiveness. They're not training for size. A lot of sports, in fact, every sport now uses weight training as part of the conditioning, strength and conditioning. However, most of them are training for power. They're not training for size. They don't want these athletes in most sports to get any bigger. They don't want them. You don't want 250, 280-pound soccer players running around. You don't want certain positions in football getting too big. You certainly don't want NBA players being massive like a pro bodybuilder. They don't train that way. They train for power, functionality, mobility, things like that. But you, as a bodybuilder, as someone who is trying to get bigger, you should be doing more reps. Forget about the 1, 2, 3 reps. If you want to test your strength every once in a while, just because you need to feed your ego or you need to feel that heavy weight once in a while, great. But the majority of your training should be for more reps. Bodybuilders do more reps. We do more volume. We don't rest as much between sets as people who train for strength. You'll see powerlifters resting 5-10 minutes sometimes between sets. We would never do that as bodybuilders. We want to keep a pump in the muscle. We want to build the pump up to its maximum level. We want to break down the muscle fibers so they repair and become stronger and bigger over time. It's 8 to 12 reps typically is a good rep range to shoot for the upper body muscles. Lower body, 10 to 15. Sometimes I throw 20, 30, 40 reps in there too. The lower body does seem to have a different muscle makeup with more of the slow twitch fibers. So higher reps work a little bit better for legs. Not so great for the upper body. But generally speaking, anywhere from about 10 to 15 reps for the upper body, most studies seem to agree, is about right. 10 to 15, 10 to 20 for the lower body. All right, not training for strength. Okay, another reason, you're training too much. Now, I don't know how many of this might apply to, but you can have too much of a good thing. You can drink too much water and die. You can get too much sun and die of heat stroke. Anything in excessive amounts can be a bad thing. It's all about the dose or the amounts. So if you're someone who's in the gym training every day, hours and hours, and there are people like that out there, you might be one of them watching this, I don't know. Especially if you have a really deep love and a passion for training, you love the gym, it's your favorite part of the day, guilty right here. It's hard to take time off. It's hard to give your body a chance to rest and recover. But if you're not recovering from the training, you're never going to grow. The muscles do get broken down and damaged during the training that we do, and then you have to leave them alone and let them heal up. And it's not just the individual muscles. So even if you work chest today and back tomorrow, your central nervous system is still getting fried every time. So you can't train every day, even if it is different body parts, because you're still putting that demand on your system as a whole. You do need to give your body time to heal, time to rest, time to recover. So how much training is too much? That's an individual thing. You might be able to train more than me. I might be able to train more than you. Generally speaking, older people can't get away with training as much. We need more time to rest and recover. Our bodies don't heal and recover as quickly as they did. I'm 55. My body does not recover as quickly from training as it did when I was 25. That's just human biology. Even with the hormones being optimized, which does help, you're still dealing with an older body. I've also found that people who were athletic and were used to a really large volume of practices, like football players who had to do, sometimes twice a day practices. Most people who did team sports were practicing 5 days a week, 6 days a week, and then there was a game day. Those people seem to be able to tolerate larger amounts, more volume, greater frequency, training more often. It also has to do with your lifestyle. Do you have other things going on? Is your job physical? Do you have a lot of stress in your work or in your home life? Do you have a lot of responsibilities? People that don't have much going on, they don't have a physical job, they can sleep 10, 12 hours a day if they really want to. They never have to miss meals, no stress in their lives. Those people are probably going to recover a lot better than someone who works 2 jobs, takes care of kids. Maybe they go to night school. They have a stressful job. All these things, they make recovery more difficult. But that should determine how much you train. Now, if you're losing enthusiasm for the gym, if you're getting weaker, if you're shrinking, these are all very clear signs that you're overtraining. You just need to pay attention to your body, listen to your body, see what's going on, because your body does give you a lot of signals. It's up to us to recognize those signals and take action or inaction, as it may be. So you're probably training too much, some of you. Some of you, you're not training enough. Both of them are bad. You want to strike the right balance between training and recovery. Now, some people will only train a couple times a week. I understand. A lot of you people out there, a lot of you guys and girls, you have very demanding lives. You have a job or 2 jobs. You have kids to take care of. Maybe you have elderly parents you're taking care of. Who knows? There's a lot of things that can make life more challenging and take up your time, and you don't have a lot of time for things like weight training. So I do talk to people who they say, I can only train like twice a week. Well, the problem with that is you're stimulating muscle growth, okay? Say we're talking on a Wednesday right now. Say you train today. Let's say you even do your whole upper body because you only can train twice a week. Maybe you can train Wednesdays and Saturdays. So Wednesday you do upper body, Saturday you do lower body. Great. Wednesday you train everything, chest, back, shoulders, arms, your whole upper body. How long is it going to take for you to rest and recover, for your muscles to recover from that session and be ready to go again? I would venture to say 3 to 4 days, maybe 5 days. It doesn't take 7 days. I don't think, unless you've been out of training for a while and you get back into a real tough workout, that's when you have all that crazy soreness. But for the most part, if you're training consistently, you don't need 7 days between training a body part. It's actually too much because you're doing that thing where you're taking 3 steps forward, 1 step back, or 2 steps forward, 1 step back. The muscle is going to become fully recovered at some point, and then it's ready to be trained. And if another couple days beyond that 2 or 3 more days go by, you're going to start to regress. You're going to lose a little bit of the progress you made, you see? So I don't want to see people training too much, but I don't want to see people training not enough. Typically speaking, I do believe you need a minimum of 3 times a week weights every week. If you really want to keep the gains coming, 3 days a week minimum, because too much time elapsing between workouts, you're losing progress, you're losing gains, you're not going to be going forward the way you want to. 6, you're not sleeping enough. This has become more of a problem lately because we all have these phones. We're all on these phones all the time, checking our messages, scrolling through Instagram and Facebook and Twitter or X, whatever it's called, and TikTok, and we're watching YouTube, and we all have access to 1,000 channels on our cable TV, whatever you want to call it, streaming services. We've all got Netflix and Max, Hulu, all these things. There's thousands and thousands of channels and thousands of movies and shows to choose from. A lot of us stay up late watching TV, knowing damn well we should be in bed by a certain time. How much sleep do you really need? We use that 8-hour figure. It's a very, very, very general figure. Most people need about 8 hours. Plenty of studies have confirmed that's the average that most people need. As we get older, we don't need quite as much. If you're someone like myself and you're middle age, or if you're elderly, you probably don't need a full 8 hours. You could probably get by on 7, maybe 6. Some people do very well on 6. However, if you're a younger person, especially if you're very, very active, especially if you're training and trying to gain and you have an physically active job, you probably need more than 8. You probably need more, 9, 10. I remember years and years ago, I knew Flex Wheeler when he was an amateur. I knew him a couple years before he turned pro, I'd say about a year and a half. And I do recall that he made his best progress one year where he was sleeping 12 hours a day. 12 hours a day. I think he was doing 8 or 9 hours in one shot at night, and then he was taking a nap or 2 during the day. But that's when he made the biggest leap. He had been a 189-pound light heavyweight when he won the Cal in 1989. By the time he won the USA overall in 1992, 3 years later, he was about 220, 225. Totally different look. Sleep is so important, guys. Sleep is also important because when your body is sleep deprived, it produces more of the hormone cortisol, which is a catabolic hormone. It's the fight or flight hormone, the one that has kept our ancestors safe when they were being run down by rival tribes or saber-toothed tigers or whatever the hell was after us in those days. However, it is catabolic, meaning it will eat away at your muscle tissue. It's a very, very bad thing. So and it also prevents fat loss. So people who are sleep deprived typically have a much harder time gaining muscle and losing fat. It's a double whammy. You want to get enough sleep, guys. So I know this is very, very tough to hear because we're all addicted to the screens, the blue light and everything. But if you're having trouble sleeping, you could obviously do a little bit of melatonin with your last meal. I do that. Helps tremendously. A lot of people will recommend staying off the screens for a good hour, 2 hours before going to bed, which, I don't know how many people really do that. I don't. I'm watching TV almost till the end, and I'm still checking my phone all the time. Totally dark room. I have a fan going, helps me, white noise. The white noise of that fan plus the breeze helps me sleep so much better. Quality sleep is so important for brain function, for muscle gain, for fat loss, for everything. You don't want to skimp on your sleep. Final one I'll get into before going to your questions and comments. You're not growing because you have reached your natural limit. I saved this for last because it applies to a very, very small percentage of people. Very, very few people ever reach their true natural limit of muscle mass. It takes a while. It takes 5, 10, 15 years sometimes before your gains have completely stalled out. I started using gear when I was 27. I had been weight training since I was 13. So that was 14 years of natural training. I was close to my natural limit, but looking back now, I still think had I kept going, I would have put on another few pounds of muscle, 5, 10 pounds at least. It would have taken a long time. Your gains always come quickly in the beginning, very quickly. And they start coming down, 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 down. you're not going to make the progress after 5-10 years of lifting that you did in your first year or two of lifting, because that's when everything was fresh and new. You had this whole degree of progress to make, and once you get closer and closer to a natural limit, it becomes harder and harder to make gains. With this, I probably should have said your hormones are probably not optimized. Some people out there, you do have low T, you don't know it. These days, I think the awareness about low testosterone is so great that most people would seek TRT treatment if they know, my sex drive's down, I'm tired all the time, I can't make any gains in the gym. If legitimately you do your blood work and your total and free testosterone levels are lower than they should be, there's no shame in getting some TRT going. I'm with Frontline Alternative. I've been with them. Today's 2 years exactly since I started working with them. Of course, I was cycling gear for many, many years before that. But there's no shame in going on TRT if you need it. And I'm not, when I'm putting this up here, you've reached your natural limit. I'm not advocating that you all start steroid courses, get on a bunch of gear. But that's how a lot of people do get past a certain plateau. I would like to see most people train naturally for years, at least a few years, get close to their natural limit, really learn their bodies, exhaust their capabilities that their body has naturally for muscle size and strength. Then if you want to go for some chemical enhancement to go to another level, at least you've done plenty on your own. So I don't have a problem with that. All right, let's go to the phones. Comment number 1. What? Discount code for what? What if I have much sex with my girlfriend? I feel tired and no power for the gym. Does that lower my gains? Well, I wouldn't go to the gym right after having sex. I mean, if that's the only time you can have sex, I don't think it lowers your gains. I've talked to plenty of bodybuilders. I've done it myself many times. Schedules sometimes work out where you and your wife or your girlfriend, whoever it is you're having sex with, I don't know, boyfriend, I don't know, whatever, whoever you're having sex with, everybody's busy these days. So if that's the only time you can have sex is before the gym, I don't expect anybody to say, no, I'm not going to have sex because I got to go to the gym. I don't want to mess up my gains. However, if you can wait till later or do it some other time, yeah, I mean, sex for a man, the orgasm, it wipes you out. That's why the old cliche is the guy rolls over and goes to bed and starts snoring. Well, he's already in bed. While the woman's like still wide awake, because that orgasm, that release of the ejaculation, it's very tiring. Guys, how it knocks you right out. And that's why a lot of people, even if they don't have a sexual partner, they'll masturbate just to ejaculate to go to sleep, because boy, does it make you tired. But anyway, I'm not gonna tell you to stop having all that sex. Good for you. I'm happy for you. But try to space it out a little bit better. Try to make it so that you don't have sex right before you go to the gym. You probably notice you could have sex, have your orgasm. You should be fine in like an hour. I mean, if you're leaving immediately for the gym, I could see where there might be an issue, but it shouldn't be a problem. We're right now to do back. 62 years old yesterday. God bless you, Robert. Did flat bench, some person 9 pounds, 18 reps, 0 PEDs, just eating healthy. Yeah, well, you're in the 0.0001 percentile of strength for your age. I'm sure of that. You're obviously a strong dude. I don't know when that picture in the avatar was taken. If that's anywhere near recent, you look phenomenal. And to do it naturally, A, you worked very hard. B, you must have some awesome genetics, because, not everybody's meant to be big and strong ever, much less at 62 years old, but God bless you. Yeah, D, I agree. That's pretty crazy. Hey, Kelly. Yeah, I agree. I hate to be that grouchy old man, but what else could I be? That's who I am. I think a lot of people now, they really do rely on the gear and drugs to train hard, to make up for lack of hard training. I see a lot of these kids, and I'm on Instagram. I get the Instagram feed. There's a lot of young guys on gear now. I mean, I see teenagers bragging about, day 30 of trend, day 60 of trend, day 90 on trend. It's always trend. They have to go with trend. Why couldn't they just use test and Deca like the old school? Not as toxic as trend. But yeah, if you train very, very hard, eat a lot of good food, rest, and throw the gear in there, the results are phenomenal. if you're on a bunch of gear and you're eating like crap, you don't train that hard, you don't really get enough rest, results are going to be like, they're not going to be that great. I'm not against steroids. I don't like to see very young people on them, of course. That's my personal preference. But if you're going to use them, maximize them, make them work for you. Like the old school bodybuilders, they said they were the finishing touch because they were doing everything else right. Then they added the steroids on. Whereas now you see people just using the steroids and not doing anything else right, and they're still expecting the awesome results. It doesn't work that way. We old guys have to rest. Yeah, I mean, I find it's hard to take days off from the gym personally, especially, I haven't worked full time since November of 2023, so I have a lot more time on my hands over the past year and 2 months to get to the gym. So it's very tempting to just go every day. I do notice that when I train 3 days in a row, by the third day, I'm starting to feel a little bit less than optimal. Like my strength, my energy, it's probably not as great as if I take 2 days, if I train 2 days and take a day off. But it's all individual. Everybody's different. Robert continues, what do you think about using pink Himalayan salts? Well, obviously water for hydration, but you do need plenty of sodium as a bodybuilder to fuel the muscular contractions. That's why, Gatorade has those electrolytes in it, and sodium is one of them. So you can get it from table salt. You can get it from Himalayan sea salt. I don't know what benefits Himalayan sea salt has over regular table salt. So if you do, please let me know. But you definitely need salt in your diet. I think one mistake a lot of guys do make, and if this was going to be like 70 reasons instead of 7 reasons, that probably would have been one of them, is lack of sodium. Some people are very afraid of sodium, and they strive to eat almost zero sodium in their daily diet. And you can't have really you can't fuel muscle contraction. You're not going to get a pump without sodium. You need water and you need sodium and you need glucose. You need some kind of carbs in your system to get a pump. In fact, on contest day, a lot of bodybuilders are backstage. I've had this happen in the past. We were told to only just drink distilled water the last couple of days. We wanted no salt, so we made sure we weren't having egg whites, nothing with salt in it. Even the water we drank was no salt. And we get backstage and we could not get a pump, and we didn't understand why. And that was one of the reasons why. And it's also a reason why a lot of people restrict their sodium the last few days before a contest, but then as soon as prejudging is over, what do they go out to eat? A burger and fries. And then they can't believe how great they look at the night show. They're fuller, they're vascular, they're tight, their muscles are pushing out against the skin. The only real difference was they were probably dehydrated and low on sodium. And that meal after judging, they went out and they had a meal with a good amount of sodium in it, and they had some water. Do you think taking Anavar before training will help, or just make an 8-week cycle? So I stopped cycling. I stopped myself. But when I was still taking pills, like I would get D-ball sometimes, I would get Anavar sometimes, I would do it before training. I would do it it takes me about 20 minutes to 25 minutes to get to the gym from where I live. So I would take them right before I left, so that about 35 minutes later, I would start training and they were in my system. The pills get into your system very quickly, especially if they're tablets and you chew them. So yeah, I think it is benefit if you're going to use orals like Anavar, D-ball, Anadrol. I do think using them pre-workout is probably the best way to use them. I mean, I've talked to Dr. T about it, Dr. Tuliatos, and he agreed with me on that. I can't remember the exact reasons why. I just know that it works. What about weed? Yeah, good question, Ricky. Wetback. I thought you were going to say wetback, which is a horrible racial slur against my Mexican brothers and sisters. Yeah, so that's a good question, because cannabis is the most popular recreational drug in the United States. It's legal in, I think, over 30 states, 30 out of our 50 states now. It's legal here in Massachusetts. I was smoking daily for many, many years. The only reason I cut back was because almost a year ago now, I had a hair transplant. And one of the things I found out of my research was that the THC, the active ingredient, the one that gets you high in cannabis, it can inhibit the hair, the regrowth of hair. It makes the hair shafts weaker, more brittle, so your hair won't grow back as well as it should. And I spent $6,000 to go to Turkey and have that done. I didn't want to screw it up. But yeah, it can affect because it can increase your estrogen levels. You probably heard, or if you haven't, look up, do a search on cannabis and gynosomastia, which gyno, bitch tits, because they can, the ingredients in it, the THC can raise your estrogen levels. And of course, as men, we don't want our estrogen levels being too high. You don't want zero estrogen either. You need a little bit of estrogen for muscle growth, but you still want the testosterone to be higher. The problem with marijuana is it tips the scales in favor of the estrogen. So like I have someone in my family's an in-law who started getting gyno from smoking weed. Other things it can affect. I'll tell you one thing is some guys have used it as a way to increase and enhance their appetite, especially guys with poor appetites. That's a very common thing, a common way that guys found to be able to eat the food, get the food down, is they would just have a couple puffs right before a meal. And if it was difficult for them to get down a chicken breast and 2 cups of rice, well, now it's not so difficult. One problem that I always had with weed is it made me hungry. It gives you the munchies, but I never wanted clean bodybuilding food. I wanted to eat pizza, cereal with milk, cookies, ice cream, stuff like that. I didn't want clean food. It made me crave sugar, salt, fat, all the wrong things. So if you're somebody with a high metabolism and you can get away with eating like that without getting fat, great. Most people can't. Most people will get flabby and soft and start to get love handles or maybe a little bit of a gut eating that way. Kalyan, overwhelming bodybuilding, science, pharmacology, take away the key component of work ethic, consistency. Yeah, Kalyan. So when we say things like that, and I echo that sentiment quite often, people think we're trying to say that drugs don't work. I would never come here and bullshit you guys that steroids don't work, SARMs don't work, growth hormone doesn't work. These things all work. Performance enhancing drugs, they work. They work very well. They work much, much better if you work harder. So again, we take, let's say 2 guys have the same genetics. They're identical twins. Okay. So we know the genetics factor is not a factor. They both have the exact same genetics. One of them, they both take, let's say 750 milligrams of test and 600 milligrams of equipoise or deca a week, a very, very basic bulking cycle. Let's say they throw in 50 milligrams of D-ball or Anadrol a day too. That's a very basic old school type of mass building cycle that has worked for millions of people. So they're on the same drugs and they have the exact same genetics. One of them trains much harder than the other one. He eats a lot more food and more clean food. He gets more sleep. The other one goes out and parties, drinks, smokes, doesn't get that much, doesn't consistently get 8 hours of sleep. Maybe he only gets 4 or 5 hours some nights. Doesn't train that hard. The twin that worked much harder and did everything right is going to look so much better. He's going to be bigger, leaner. He's going to look like a different person, even though they're genetically they're the same and they're on the same exact cycle. Yeah. We old guys have to rest. Yes, that is true. Did I already do that? Oh, I'm okay. I need to go down. Sorry. Do you think Kenny Jr. will legalize gear? No, I don't think he will. There's no, TRT is legal. If you have a legitimate medical need for testosterone replacement, hormone replacement, it's available to you. It's not illegal. There's no reason. I don't personally want to see gear legalized, only because, I'll tell you that. Let's put it this way. The only way it would happen is if there was big money in it for the pharmaceutical companies. They're making billions of dollars now off the GLP-1 drugs like Ozempic and Wegovy. They're making so much money now because there's a massive, massive demand. There always has been a demand for weight loss drugs. People don't want to diet. They don't want to go to the gym. They don't want to ride bikes and run on treadmills. They don't want to do all that. They don't want to have to stop eating the foods they like. So if they can just take a shot once a week that curbs their appetite so they're not really that hungry anymore. Perfect. And look at how many people. There's millions of people on these drugs now, and they've all lost tons and tons of weight with zero effort. They're not doing anything different. They're not busting their ass doing cardio. They're not dieting strictly. They're just taking a drug that makes them not want to eat anymore, makes them kind of nauseated. So they get full. They get full a lot faster. There's not that many. There aren't that many people. You know, we bodybuilders tend to think there are more of us than there are. There's not that many of us guys. Look at the total percentage of citizens, of people, adults in the USA. We're a country of about 330 million people. I doubt there are more than 10 to 20 million adult males who are really interested in getting bigger and stronger. And they have access to TRT if they need it. So if gear was legalized, what would happen? What would be different? Would the pharmaceutical companies start rolling out Test, DECA? Equipoise is a veterinary drug, so that's not going to happen. Tren, same thing. They're not going to make human grade Tren. A lot of the drugs that we take were not developed for humans. They were just specifically developed for bodybuilders. There was no medical, you know, the old drugs. Anadrol was developed, you know, many years ago, 50, 60 years ago. Testosterone, even older than that. Nandrolone, DECA, very old drug. Anadrol, pretty old drug. You know, Dianabol goes back to the late 50s, early 60s. So, you know, we have these drugs that they could start manufacturing again and selling, but unless, you know, they did their market research and saw there was enough demand, they're not going to spend the money to mass produce these drugs again. So I don't think it's up to Kennedy, RFK. And again, TRT has become very normalized, very accepted in American culture now. There's no shame in it anymore. If you need testosterone, if you have low testosterone, even if your doctor won't help you out for whatever reason, if they're skittish, there's TRT clinics everywhere. The one I go to, Frontline Alternative, that serves Ronnie Coleman. They're great. They're based out of Texas. There are tons of these places that are legit. They work with you. They have blood work done. You consult with it. You know, I just had my doctor's consultation last night. We went over my blood work. I do blood work with them every 10 weeks. So that's almost like four times a year, basically. Nanny, I almost had gyno. Also, you remember that? I stopped using Novo and just flat, no sides. I never take gear anymore. Huh. I don't know. So I don't understand, Nanny, what the gyno or the almost gyno has to do with anything. I don't know. Why is your chest flat? I don't understand. I mean, you can build, you should be able to build some chest mass. Like my son he's very drug-free. My son is completely natural. Very natural. Never touched a pro hormone, a SARM, anything like that. Genetics are on his side when it comes to chest, because chest grew very easily for me. He's only 100. He's prepping for his first show, a natural show. He's only 145 pounds, but he's got a pretty thick little chest on him. If you train it, it's going to grow. It has to grow. You might not have a chest like Ronnie Coleman or the late, he's not dead, Bertil Fox. You might not have a chest out to here, but if you train it consistently, it has to grow. Recent dispute. I mean, it's pretty easy. Sean Ray came from an era where there were no coaches. He never had a coach. So because he did it, he got to the Olympia many times. I think he did 13 Mr. Olympia contests, and he was always in the top 5. He got second place a couple times at the Olympia. He won the Arnold Classic once officially, another time where the title was taken away from him. So anyway, Sean was a very good. He was an excellent bodybuilder. I believe if there had been a 212 division back when Sean was competing, he would have dominated, but they didn't. So he was up against, at first Lee Haney, and then he was up against Dorian Yates. It was Dorian who Sean faced in his prime. When Sean was at his best, the years he was best at as a pro bodybuilder, Dorian Yates was Mr. Olympia. And that's who was really standing in his way. But because Sean did it all without a coach, he doesn't feel coaches are necessary. He feels they sort of take advantage of bodybuilders' sort of dependence or reliance on someone to tell them what to do, where they can basically just abdicate responsibility and just say, I don't want to think about what I have to eat, what gear to take. how much cardio. You just tell me what to do and I'll do it. So that's his side of the argument. Now, Aceto is, one of the greatest coaches of all time. Jay Cutler, the late Sean Roden. He works with Andrew Jack now, Ramon Dino. He's worked with hundreds, probably thousands of clients, and he's one of the OGs. He's one of the very, very best at what he does. So obviously, he feels he can do a good job with Derek Lunsford, and I believe he can as well. Now, a good argument is, why do we think the bodybuilders should be able to do everything without a coach, without any guidance, without anybody helping them make these critical decisions on their diet, their gear, their training? We have all these other sports with coaches. Now, do the quarterbacks in the NFL, do the NFL players, do they know how to play football? Of course they do. So why do they have coaches? Why would they need a coach? I know that's a team sport. It's not quite the same, but look at something like an individual sport like wrestling, figure skating. It would be ridiculous for us to say, well, they shouldn't need coaches. They know how to wrestle. They know how to skate. Every elite athlete can be much, much better when they have proper guidance and coaching, practicing, picking up on things they're not doing optimally and correcting mistakes and adjusting and pushing them and knowing when to pull back. I think personally coaches are a very important part of pro bodybuilding. Not everybody needs a coach. And if you don't need a coach, good for you. If you choose to use a coach and utilize that guidance, there's nothing wrong with that either. It's an individual decision. To say that nobody needs coaches is ridiculous. To say that everybody needs a coach is also ridiculous. So that's basically what I have to say about that. I think tested in gel form will work as well as needle. No, it doesn't. The reason it doesn't work, Matt, it would if you use more and more of it. But, that was I shouldn't say the first TRT form of administration that I used back. Oh gosh, we're going back like 12 years now. I was trying TRT and then I'd go back on gear and then I'd go, anyway, long story short, I did try Anadrol. I was using that for a couple of years. The problem is it doesn't all get absorbed. A lot of it gets wasted. I think Dr. T said only about 30% of what you slather on actually gets absorbed and utilized, where 100% of everything you inject deep into a muscle gets utilized. It's not getting wasted. So I had an issue with the gel, especially when I found out it was getting wasted because it was getting more and more expensive. I was paying for it. I was paying the deductible on it or something. First it was like $20, then it was like $30, then it was $50. Once it went up to like $60, which lasted me not even a month, I said, I'm just going to get my own bottles of test and do this on my own. And I stopped. That's when I stopped using the TRT services. This was years ago. 2 years ago is when I finally decided no more cycling. I had my fun. I got as big as I could get, or as big as I was able to get, taking whatever amount of risk I was willing to take. So 2 years now, I've been a legit TRT and no more cycling. And I'm down. I'm not as big as I used to be, but I want to live. We just had a guy here a year or two older than me. I think he was 57. A guy named Dave Medeiros passed away. Well-known figure in the New England bodybuilding community. Trained out of this gym, General Fitness. Good guy. Everybody loved him. A lot of hilarious posts on Facebook. And 57, he died suddenly. So I'm assuming it's a heart attack. And he left behind a son that looks like he's only about 10 or 11. So more than ever, I'm just motivated to stay alive. But yeah, gel form does not work as injections. No. Easy one. Nice amount of gear. I mean, I heard stuff. I don't know if it was true. Very few people will admit to using large amounts of gear, because if somebody ever said, well, I took 5 grams of test and 2 grams of DECA, if they ever came out and admitted to these monster cycles, a lot of people would just say, well, that's why you looked the way you did. They would negate all the hard work. They would negate the fact that this person's genetically gifted. It would all fall away because all they would see was, oh, he took all that gear. You've asked me this before, Kellyanne. I mean, I've heard about people running, the late Boston Lloyd once did an experiment with 13 grams of gear a week. I don't even know how many weeks he did that for. He did that just because he had all this gear lying around. He wanted to see what would happen. Because people used to send him, all these underground labs used to send him bottles and bottles and blister packs. He had all kinds of free gear being sent to him, the late Boston Lloyd. He told me this. That's why he decided to run it. He said he had all this stuff And for a while, he was just giving it away a lot, most of it. And then he said, let me see what happens. And, he didn't become Mr. Olympia, and he died at 29 years old. And I'm very, very certain that all the gear played a role. That Ripplin or he used some weird peptide at the end that was his real downfall. It put him into kidney failure. Some peptide that was all about burning fat. I can't remember what it was called. I know people keep correcting me on that. I don't remember it. I don't want to know the name of it because I would never want people to go out and look for it and try to use it, and then the same thing happens to them. But yeah, I've heard of people running anywhere from 5 to 10 total grams of gear. There's plenty of people out there now who will do 20 IUs of growth a day. That's a lot of growth hormone. A kit, forget about the pens. Those are usually like 36 IU pens. So the kit's usually it's a little glass bottle with a little bit of powder. You reconstitute, you put the milliliter water. That gives you 100 units. So if you're using 20 units a day, that bottle is only going to last you 5 days. A whole kit is usually 10 bottles. So you burn through a whole kit in, I don't know the math, but you go through a lot. Where do you inject test not to get hurt? So the place where most people will inject anything, test, DECA, whatever, trend, is the upper outer quadrant of the glute, your butt. So if you take one of your butt cheeks and you draw a line down the middle and a line across the middle, 4 equal sides, it's going to be that the outside quadrant. The reason is because there are fewer nerve endings there. And it's your nerves. When you hit a nerve, that's when the pain is excruciating. There are certain places, if you ever hit, like if you ever injected like in your hamstring, you hit your sciatic nerve, I don't know, you might get paralyzed. I don't know what would happen, but you don't want to find out. So people tend to try to stay away from areas where there are a lot of nerve endings. The outer quad, even though they recommend that, I found I was hitting nerves. The safest place I found is that upper outer quadrant of each glute. The second least painful place to inject is right on the side of your delt, right there in the middle. Not a lot of nerve endings. I've also been doing because I have so much scar tissue in my glutes and in my shoulders, I've been doing my TRT shots in my lat, right on the outside of the lat. You have to find where there's enough thick muscle to inject it into, and that has given me less pain. I don't feel any pain at all in there. You want to avoid the most painful place I ever injected. I had my wife do a shot right into my bicep because I heard about site injecting. I said, well, why not put my gear there and try to get some extra growth? It's going to stretch the fascia. Oh my God, that hurt. Never again. Never again. Call you on again. Bible and coaching industry become breeding ground for charlatans, masking elite coaching, basically everything. I don't think you necessarily need a college degree to be a good prep coach. It's great to have them, and I know you want to pursue that, and I applaud you. And I think that's going to add an extra dimension of authority and credibility, as well as expertise. You're going to have solid base of knowledge, book learning to draw from, whereas a lot of coaches don't have that. We're more bro scientists, where you're going to be closer to being an actual scientist using actual science. But there's a lot to be said for experience as well. Just because you don't have a degree doesn't mean you can't be a good prep coach. If you're really sincere about wanting to help people and learning as much as you can on your own about nutrition, about supplements, about drugs, if you're willing to invest the time to really give yourself that education so that you can responsibly help lead these clients to achieving their goals, yeah, I'm all for it. But there are a lot of people who are just in it for a quick buck. They did one contest and now they say they just want to cash in. Some of them are doing very well because, especially if they're really good looking and they're charismatic, that goes a long way these days, of course. But I always look at track records. Anybody who is looking to hire a coach should ask to see some before and afters with clients. They should ask for some contacts to speak with current or former clients so we can get some feedback and talk to them about whether they were satisfied or not with your coaching abilities. But yeah, there are some great coaches out there. There's some bad coaches out there. You have to take it upon yourself as a client or potential client to sort of vet them and see who's a phony and who's not. How to explain Sergio Oliva Jr.? Well, there's a lot of people with great genetics who never even get to the Olympia. Sergio's been to the Olympia. He's been to the Arnold a couple times. He's won a few pro shows, so he's not horrible. But, just because his dad was a 3-time Mr. Olympia doesn't necessarily guarantee that he's going to be Mr. Olympia himself or even like top 3. I think he needs hopefully I can't remember who he's working with now. Is he with Boss of Outlaw now? Everyone seems to be going with Stefan Kienzl, Boss of Outlaw. I think he just needs stability in his life. He's been moving around a lot the last few years, different countries, different cities. He went through a divorce. He's had a lot of issues with his personal life and just not having a lot of stability. So I think if he's in a good spot now and he has that stability, and if he has a good coach, I think he could still top 10 for sure. Is well within his reach. I mean, he won the New York Pro. I saw him take second at the Tampa Pro one year and the Chicago Pro within a week of each other, where he probably could have won either one of those shows. But yeah, I think Sergio just needs a coach to push him and guide him and tell him when to do more, when to do less. And he needs that personal life to be very, very stable with no distractions. Do you think Andrew Jack can beat Samson? I think with a little bit more hamstring mass, a little bit more overall size, and condition, he's not behind Samson in condition. I think he's capable of doing it. I mean, they're at a similar level. Samson's the best in the world right now. But let's not forget, last year, Samson won the Olympia, but 6 months before that, he took second place to Hadi at the Arnold Classic Columbus and the Arnold Classic UK. So Samson's not unbeatable. Hadi beat him twice last year. And then he beat Hadi. These guys are all very close to each other. I do feel with Andrew, he does need to get more hamstring development, because from the side, I see that disparity. The quads are more developed than the hams. I think he could be a little bigger overall, as long as he keeps that waist nice and tight like it is. And condition, I've seen him come in pretty good condition. So yeah, I think he could do it. Carlos, I think Carlos is looking fantastic. Let's see if I can find him for you. Now, what's he going to look like in, what are we, 7.5 weeks out now? Not really sure how far we are out, Carlos. I haven't looked at his. I see his updates on other Instagram pages people keep making. Yeah, he doesn't post the updates himself. Other people post the updates for him. I'm going to just show it real quick. Yeah, so let's see. Yeah, that doesn't show much. That doesn't show much. Oh, okay, here we go. Let me see. Hold on. Let me see. This might be the newest update. No. All right, so this is the newest update of Carlos. Hey, he looks crazy. Crazy. Condition still needs to be a lot better to win, to beat Samson and Derek, and this is a pretty tough lineup that he's walking into. Andrew jacked. However, if he dials it in, if he comes in super shredded, nice deep clean muscle separations, striations, yeah, I think Carlos could pull off an upset. I don't know if he can win. I don't know if I'll go that far, but he'll do very well. Negating the importance of experience. Yeah, Kelly, you need both. You need knowledge and information, and you need real-world practical experience, because there are plenty of guys out there, young guys, who they're the science nerds, the geeks. They know all these techniques. You'll see them making these videos saying, don't do barbell rows. you should do this little twisting cable thing instead. It isolates the lats better. A lot of times things work much better on paper than they do in real world, in practical application. So a lot of people get way too caught up in the science and they don't try things out in real life, in the real world. And they're just relying on studies and data. And it's good to have that information, but unless you're combining that with real world experience and things that you've practiced and applied in real life, it's really not that useful. Trying to make that real coach should be ideal to create a surveys. Yeah, ideally, you need a certification to be a personal trainer. You need to become a nutritionist. You need a degree. You don't need any kind of certification to be a prep coach. Literally anybody, if they want to be a prep coach, they can be a prep coach. Will they get clients? I don't know, but they can certainly try. There's nothing stopping them. They don't need to go to any governing body or sanctioning organization to get accredited or certified. Nothing like that is necessary. So, yeah, it's kind of the Wild West out there in terms of coaching, but the best coaches will rise to the top and the bad coaches will fall away. If someone's an awful coach, they don't get results for people, nobody's going to recommend them. They can be fantastic at marketing and make these great social media posts and videos and buy likes and followers and blue badges and all this stuff. But if they're a bad coach and they're not getting results for people, they're not going to succeed as a coach. They might pull the wool over people's eyes for a while and scam a lot of people into hiring them, but it's not going to last. It's not going to be sustainable. Good Vito, maybe the breakthrough guy. Yeah. Oh, Vito's very good, Goku. Absolutely. Yeah. I mean, I think people forgot about him because he competed earlier in the season last year and then that was it for him. But yeah, Vito's still, because the Detroit show was April, I believe, where he took second to Martin. He looked damn good. Wasn't he in the Brazil show too? Yeah. Yeah. John Jewett is offering through his J3 University. Yeah, Jewett, and I think I believe Dave Palumbo was the first one to do that. The first coach to come up with his own certification course where people are, I don't know the name of it, but if they go through it, they're certified as one of his coaches. I know Matt Jansen had coaches working under him. That wasn't a certification. Dorian Yates has a certification program himself for DY training and coaching and all that stuff. So yeah, but John Jewett, definitely somebody who is doing the right thing in terms of a structured certification organization where he can say with confidence, if somebody went through this course and passed it, I approve of them. I would trust them to coach people just like I'm a coach. So, all right, I've been doing this for, almost an hour now. So I think I'm going to say goodbye. Any comments below, guys? I will get to all the comments. I answer everything. I read all of them. I respond to every comment because I appreciate all you guys watching. Hope you're all doing great. And that's it. I'm going to say goodbye. Hope you enjoyed 7 Reasons You're Not Growing. Hope I was able to help some of you guys recognize some things that you could be doing differently so that you do see more of a return on your investment for that time you're spending in the gym, that time and effort. And of course, I want to see you guys all reach your goals. So that's it. Talk to y'all later. Bye-bye.